Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ola Fajimi. I'm a GP and training program director in Coventry. Today we have a very important guest who has agreed to talk to me about everything related to GP training and the SCA. He's right here with us. Without further ado, let's get started. Dr. Ajayi, could you please tell us about yourself?
Well, thank you for having me here, Dr. Ola. I am Dr. Olishe Ajayi, now a salary GP in Fairhead Medical Center in Merseyside, England. Yeah.
Okay. And what's your sort of medical background like?
Right. So, I had my medical education back in Nigeria, where I finished about 10 years ago, then
Mm,
came into the UK 5 years ago, and got into training about 4 years ago. 4 years ago. So with little, my first year in the UK was in a private hospital where I had little or no NHS experience.
mm,
So I then jumped into training, and that really made the journey a bit difficult for me. But thankfully, we've come to the end of that now.
yeah, you finally got there. So, how did you find training? You mentioned it was difficult because you didn't have
Yeah,
prior NHS experience.
yeah, it was. The training was very demanding. I would say it didn't come easy for me at all. Um, I mean, given that I didn't have NHS experience, I just thought it would be a stroll in the park. Just felt like, well, I know malaria, I know those tropical diseases, and given that I still believe that maybe because I didn't have the specialty training in Nigeria, I just came in as an MO from
Mm,
Nigeria. Maybe
mm,
that being that was not too helpful, but when I got into the training, I went through A&E, went into GP,
mm,
and I got the of my life as a GP training ST1 when my said on the first day he met me that I was not good enough to be a training. And that sent a lot of shivers down my spine. I lost my confidence. I didn't know what to expect. And it was just all rough throughout. I mean, I was anxious, I was struggling, seeing patients, I wasn't confident, and my CS felt like an
mm,
F. I mean, the first day he said an F2 was better than I was, and I didn't go through the usual, the admin just to understand what the GP was all about. So just start seeing 2 or 3 patients. I thought a patient, you like where I was coming from in hospital A&E, you see a patient for 30 minutes.
mm,
I was just like, chatting up the patient for almost 30 minutes, 1 hour. So it wasn't a very easy exposure for me.
mm,
So, yeah.
mm. Wow. I mean, even for those of us with prior NHS experience and those who have done multiple training programs before, GP training is a formidable training. Many people point to the fact that it's short. Yes, it's true that it's short, but it's also very, very packed. So now that you have finished your training, you are a salaried GP leading your own
Mm.
team in your own right. What advice would you give to those in training now and those looking to start training in the future?
I think I would say they should get lots of information, like getting subscribed to your YouTube channel. I must commend you for what you're doing there.
Thank
Many
you.
people, different people, some people just get into a system and they know how things work right away. Some
Mhm,
people need their hands being held on and being showed what and what. Some people need to stay around their colleagues, people who they are familiar with, so that they can, show them the ropes.
mhm,
And so that would be a very important thing, I would say. And
mhm,
making sure that they learn the communication skills in good time,
mhm,
trying
mhm,
to make get people to assess them because we know we are IMGs, we know where we are not very good at in terms of communication. It could be a
mm,
big challenge. It
mm,
was for me.
mm, Right. So, tell us about your SCA journey.
Yeah, that was another. I thought because I had a lot, even in hospitals, I had challenges with getting across, communicating, be a good team member.
Mm,
So always hanging on my AKT, which I
mm,
passed at
mm,
just at one. But when it got to the clinical exam, which was SCA, we were the first set of people writing SCA.
mm,
So the first 7 months, nobody knew what SCA was. In
mm,
fact, people were just rolling over from RCA to SCA. So it looked like we were just playing in the park till
mm,
the drew closer and there were updates on what to do and what the exam would be on. So when I wrote my first one, I just went in and said, my ears had listened to a few of my consultations and yeah, it looked okay, but unfortunately I didn't pass.
mm,
Given that I've not really had experiences of failing clinical exam, that weighed me down. I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't know how to start. And
mm,
my educational supervisor too was not sure what the problem was. So that was in November, was it 2023?
Correct.
It was a Christmas with the family. It was difficult to even do anything. So my plan was to take up the training in February and pick up another exam in January, which I picked up an exam in March. I couldn't register for January, which was another mistake.
Mm,
So I had a surgery in where I had, in the hospital. I had a lump removed,
mm,
but I had time at training, but I still rushed the exam, which unfortunately I failed at the second attempt.
well, well, well. What then happened
So,
after?
so I was now lost. I now submitted that I didn't know what I was doing.
Mm,
I was I was I was just like something is really wrong because the score was even worse
mm,
at the second.
mm,
So just felt like okay, maybe I started paying all sorts of tutorials, pay here, pay there. I had all chunks of materials to read from, which everyone was just saying the same. But thankfully, one of my good friends recommended ND UK, where I reluctantly joined. Then I met you, and I was planning to write in June. And then you told me to send in my consultations, and you were reluctant about my writing the exam. And I felt like, no, I have to write the exam now. I'm finishing in August. And there were a lot of permutations because the family needed to move on.
mm,
Well, I reluctantly agreed to delay the exam, cancel the exam, maybe
mm,
like 4 weeks, and I went back to drawing board.
mm, mm,
When I understood what the exam was all about,
mm,
linking up with people some people seem to just understand how the exam work, and it felt like it was just a normal day for them. Some
mm,
people had educational supervisors who would use the checklist, but
mm,
most of us, some of us just were like locums in the GP surgery, just asked to see patients and discuss
mm,
anyone, which might not really suit some people. So
mm,
I needed to understand the exam. So I needed to understand the exam was more like a story than do you have this, do you have this, trying to use the signposts and
mm,
trying to make it conversational like a friend,
mm.
trying to, when there's a disagreement, trying to not be aggressive and making it still look like making it professional and yeah, at the end of the day we got there.
Well, well, and at that last attempt, obviously when we got to meet, by the way, NDUK is Nigerian Doctors in the UK, and we were doing the teaching. Did you, at that point of the last attempt, know exactly what you've been doing wrong?
Yes, I realized that I didn't understand the exam.
Mm,
I realized that the exam was like you needed to understand where the patients will be coming from. For example, one of the things I realized was you have a scenario, you
mm,
should be able to plan ahead. This is a case, or this is a logical case.
yeah.
This is a case. You should have a formula of how the history taking will go. This
Mm,
is health.
yeah.
Those you needed to have plans. Then the other thing is, okay, this is a mental health case. There's a way to go. That thing I realized also was um, empathy. A patient is angry, trying to walk it up. Because I don't think there's any way an IMG will pass the exam if your interpersonal skills are not top notch.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that is always get it all wrong, in my own opinion. So
Mm,
you need a formula to work at that when the patient is saying no, doctor,
mm-hmm,
and I doesn't, patient is saying I don't want to be referred, I don't want to go to hospital, I don't want that, working it out. So those I also realized the importance of practicing and practicing all over again. I remember I would just gather my colleagues and say, just let's discuss red flags in just how would we signpost red flags in different, okay, this is mental health, this is children,
mm,
and how we discuss management, just 5 minutes.
mm,
And we come up to say, okay, I agree with what you've said. From what you've told me, I agree.
mm,
Or from what you said, I know you were thinking of this, but
mm, mm,
it's less likely to be
mm,
this. I think it could be this because it is this, this, and this. What do you think?
mm.
Making it, the management has to be clear.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not just, I usually use things like, I would like to reassure you.
Mm,
So that removes unnecessary words
mm-hmm,
and it tells the examiner or the candidate that this is not something I would be worried about. And we
mm-hmm,
can move on to something else instead of just moving
mm,
around the circle at that point where you're trying to communicate the diagnosis.
mm, mm,
So I learned
mm,
you and I was able to finish some of my stations, especially management, in very good time. And it was clear and
mm,
concise with
mm,
plans about safety netting
mm,
and you taught us some of the words. What about we catch up in 2 weeks time?
mm-hmm,
Yes, doctor. But before then, if you notice this, and this, would you be able to contact us on 111? Or if you notice this, contact 999. Is that all right? Good.
mm, mm,
So,
mm, mm. So you learned various phraseologies to use in various scenarios. You learned to
that,
have a clear system in place.
yeah, yeah.
Mm, mm. All right. Now that you've gone through the training, you've gone through the SCA, you have a lot of experience in the SCA, you're now a salaried GP, soon to begin to also support trainees as well. What advice would you give an IMG who is preparing for the SCA?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm in the best position to say that because I will. Well, I would say that it's not it's from your year one or first year of training, get this consultation right. Get people to look at your videos because there's a high chance that you are not doing the right thing,
Mm,
the right because you most of the UK trained doctors have done GPs in the year 3, year 4, they've done F2s. So you coming into the system, you need to really learn the way it should be done. Then I would say that if your educational supervisor or your trainer is just saying everything is fine, there's a chance that everything is not fine.
mm,
So one way to check with that is to ensure they use the checklist.
mm,
Because,
mm,
yeah, audience use the checklist and make sure. Sorry about that. Make sure that they use the checklist to look at your consultation
mm,
and also get into groups of people who get good group discussions. I cannot overemphasize the importance of group discussions. especially people who understand where you're coming from. Some people advise the training with whites and people who have gone through that. If you have the opportunity, that's also an added advantage.
Mm, And one importance of actually role playing, which you mentioned as well, is the fact that when you role play and you role play with a wide range of people, it allows whatever one is doing wrong to be picked by someone else and goes,
Yeah,
you know what, Dr. La, that thing you've done, why don't you do it this way? But when we are all the same from the same background, we tend to just validate our own mistakes and then continue making the same mistakes over and over. Dr. Ajayi, any final words?
yeah. Well, I would say the GP training is a very brilliant training, that would help your communication skills
Mm,
and make you want to, you talk better, you know how to manage situations, and it's a lovely training that I'm glad I encountered. I'm really, really grateful for your timely help, or else maybe I would have been thrown out of the training.
I'm just so glad I could be of help. Well,
Uh,
please go on.
Yeah, I mean, it's very few people who would really be genuinely interested in people's progress without having met them before. So, yeah, can always do this over and over again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for agreeing to join us today, Dr. Ajayi. So if you've liked that interview with Dr. Ajayi and you like to see many more of such interviews, please subscribe to the channel. Please put your questions down to, if you've got any questions for Dr. Ajayi, put them down in the chat. I will get across to Dr. Ajayi and I will bring exactly his answers to the channel. If you're still yet to subscribe, please make sure to do so. Share with your friends so that as many people as possible will be able to watch this and many more. And we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.